Welcome back, everybody, to SEL Esports, and we have more Valorant action this week, starting off not with the game we expected to have, as we kind of wanted Texas State in their lineup against GMU, but a forfeit, unfortunately, here in our quarterfinals now moves GMU guaranteed on to likely face off against Cumberland Phoenix in their semifinal just next week. And for Oklahoma fans and for Oklahoma players, it's probably a pretty good sign for you. Just one more team needs to win in between UGA Black and now Charlotte Esports to guarantee that you will not just have a tiebreaker in front of you and you have to go through a rigorous battle and competition to get through to the LAN, but you'll just be guaranteed cinching your way to victory thanks to last split's performance alongside this split's performance here at Dallas. But speaking of that, we can only watch one of those games. And the game we're going to watch today on broadcast, big shout out to the teams and players for coming in very last minute to get this oriented for us, Dallas. It is JMU versus Charlotte Esports.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a repeat there for Charlotte, but for JMU, a team that we're expecting to kind of go ahead and definitely have a head up when it comes around to this kind of competition. I mean, knowing the caliber they've been playing with the entirety of the season so far, knowing what they've accomplished, knowing what they've done, I'm expecting to see, obviously, some great things for them, knowing it's been a couple of weeks since we've seen their last debut here in the SEL. But, I mean, obviously, Charlotte Esports, a bit refreshing in terms of the minds, very fresh, not really too great whenever we talk about the big scheme of things in terms of how long we've had a hiatus from them. So that's kind of the big thing, though, is knowing that we talk about Oklahoma, we talk about Charlotte now, who we're seeing today, the team to beat Oklahoma. So we can see whether or not they're actually kind of chalked out to be made for this thing and show whether or not Oklahoma would have a relatively similar shot.
Yeah, JMU has to make semifinals to even have a chance. That's a tiebreaker cinch for them if they get there. And then they have to make finals, just get guaranteed anyways, right? So there's a lot on the docket for them that's required of them. And so they really want to make sure that they win this, because for Charlotte, they don't actually have to win this. They've guaranteed that they will make land. This is not a problem for them. So I'm assuming they still put a lot of priority and a lot of emphasis on this. They want to prove themselves quite heavily. They want to continue to move on throughout the split and showcase that they aren't just a last split team or prior splits teams. You know, they can do things when we start adding really good competition, like the Cumberland side, like the JMU side, right? They want to be able to perform to the best of their qualities. But we'll go ahead and throw it up here to our map bands. We got this done a fairly last minute a little bit ago, and we'll see what we're heading into. Apparently, it was fairly interesting because both Ascent and Icebox were knocked right off the rip. Likely story was that the JMU side chicken was like, okay, I saw Charlotte on Icebox on map 3. Don't really want to play against that. Pretty darn quick ban. And even though JMU, last time we saw them on broadcast, played Ascent, that was against Cumberland Phoenix, and obviously they did terribly in comparison, but that was their map pick. They were obviously comfortable with it, so I don't think it's a very wrong idea for Charlotte to go ahead and ban out Ascent as well to make our first two maps guaranteed to be Lotus and Haven.
Yeah, I mean, the Lotus pick is a no-brainer at the end of the day. I mean, Lotus, if you're not going to be seeing the Ascent, you're going to be seeing the Lotus. If you're not seeing the Lotus, you're seeing the Ascent. I mean, one of those two being the defaults, and especially some teams, when they see the three map kind of rotations and the three sites, better yet, that's something they always want to go ahead and kind of put their names towards. And with the Haven also being in the selection, it's relatively similar in terms of these two maps. I love seeing these two side by sides because, well, one feels a lot more open, one feels a lot more attuned with Ascent, and then one is still the three site kind of just standard that we know being those three lanes where you have a bit of an extension there to the middle of the map for B and C. But I mean, on this map of Lotus, it is all wide open. You had that secret that heads over towards that A site. So everything is relatively open. Any exchanges, any kind of transfers and just rotations can be made on the fly, regardless of where you want to go. So there's a lot of possibilities there. Got to really look at the teams to see what they're doing in terms of kind of cooking things up. I don't expect to see too many crazy rotates, except for initially. But I mean, that should be something kind of caught on relatively early.
And our final map, I think for Split, is a pretty solid choice for either side. JMU is, right, I think, has a little bit of history for this map. I know Charlotte does. So saying that their bans prior for Fracture and Pearl, it is what it is, especially when we know that there are some teams out there that are really darn good at Fracture, and there's some teams that aren't really comfortable with that. And if I recollect correctly, I actually thought that Charlotte was pretty good at Fracture. So seeing them ban that maybe thinks that they don't trust it enough against a side like JMU. But overall, I really do like our map selection here. Starting off with Lotus, like you said, it gives very big familiarities over towards Ascent. This one would be a better chance for JMU to kind of get the game and the pacing back under their control, to kind of reclaim some of the limelight here for the SEL, considering just how bad that Ascent game was. What, 13-2, 13-3 against Cumberland Phoenix at the time, right? They want to reclaim a little bit of that glory from that matchup in that series. Turn that over to Haven. Charlotte has played this map consistently. Same thing for Niner Esports main team. Now, they didn't have as best of a luck when it came to this map against Cumberland Destiny, but Charlotte did also win this map against the Niner Esports main team side, and they looked pretty good at it. There were a couple of small mistakes here and there with utility for the ciphers that were in play. They have made a couple adjustments throughout the weeks, and it honestly feels like Charlotte are a team that are constantly improving as time goes on. We just have to kind of gauge if that improvement is enough to usurp what JMU have done confidently throughout the semester and throughout really all of their competitions, because they are a spectacular team overall in the current CVAL state of things, and have definitely made their statement piece this semester here for the SEL.
Yeah, I mean, talking about these teams and seeing what's happening, I mean, especially when it comes around to Charlotte, I mean, what they have accomplished, as I mentioned earlier, is the same with the Niner Esports team. It's almost kind of like a culture they've kind of really ingrained and kind of nurtured inside their own sphere, where they make sure to at least play to the elevation and to the level that their opponents are on. They always like to make things interesting, keep them kind of somewhat relevant at the end of the day. But sometimes when you go up in an opponent that's just so much of a higher degree, it's hard to make an adjustment like that. You can make strides, you can take steps, sure, but you can't really make leaps. You can't make bounds like that on the day of a game whenever you've gotten just so acclimated to a certain thing. And I mean, even then, looking back at it, I mean, looking at Niner Esports main team, that is one of those teams that I give them the same kind of credit towards, but we saw how that matchup went against Cumberland Destiny. So I mean, we're going to have to see Charlotte make sure to know that JMU is going to be on that same playing field, knowing that this is kind of one of those heavy hitters that we were looking at being one of those top 4 teams. And, well, you're going to have to be ready for that, because Cumberland Destiny, as I mentioned prior, was also the one that I said was an outlier in the rest of the bracket. The rest of the top 4 makes complete sense, but Cumberland Destiny is the one that I felt like should have still been in T1, should have still been in those divisions, and should have still been running the winner circle like it's absolutely nothing. So we'll see that here today, especially in those first couple rounds, see whether they can actually make that leap, or better yet, if they don't even have to, if JMU just isn't having a great day.
Ruda was an absolute force to be reckoned with for Charlotte, and the same thing can be said for Niners Sports main team when they faced on this map. They had a player that went absolutely crazy, and that's just kind of the name of the game when it comes to kind of letting a player off the leash. Rudy had joked in that week that they were going to be let off the Rays leash for quite a while. They weren't. They decided last minute to ensure that they were still, sticking to their tried and true and rotating players in and out. But in the process of doing so, there was a couple times where Sif really felt like they weren't able to fully come alive. Whether that was when they were playing the ISO on a couple maps we've seen from them, or over on the Teo, which for the Teo, typically they play very strongly, but there have been times where it feels a little bit lackluster, and it can truly depend on the map. For Lotus, though, Teos tend to be a very big value point for a lot of teams. It's either your Teo or it is either the Vice that are going above and beyond in your composition, and when they're both at an elevated and a high level, that's when you start to see teams make really big differences for the impact that they find. That's one of the reasons we saw Cumberland Phoenix look so darn good, was J-Phone on that Vice, playing spectacularly for the map of Lotus against JMU, might I add. And then on top of that, also having a Teo and having utility beside it to really add in to the just disparaging effects of those two's wombo combo that they have. JMU really needs to make sure they could try to find a little bit of a difference maker, because obviously they're not playing with a Raze. They have Cart over on the Neon, which is a solid choice. We saw them find good success with that previous Lotus, even against Cumberland Phoenix. The score doesn't show that, but overall rounds, there was still a lot of value for it. But they don't have the Vice, and that's going to be ultimately the thing we look at here for the most part for JMU. Not having the wall, not having the garden, not having a quick use of the Arc Rose to get a flash out for the team to help with a little bit of initiation power, as well as having the ability to lock down on site as a Sentinel. This is going to be a maybe difficult, maybe tumultuous first half here for JMU, but it could also just be a way that Charlotte fall into this false lull of security that they won't have to worry about a single agent holding onto a site so statically, not worried about a Vice ball that can cut off the team in the approacher, something like a KJ turret with information and nano swarms, or a Cypher tripwire and cam, anything along those Sentinel lines they won't have to be that concerned about in the long term of things.
I do love seeing already that we are having a bit of a pause going underway. I mean, not to be weatherman, but down here in the Southeast, it is not pretty right now. So that is why Charlotte is going ahead and making sure that everything in terms of their breakers, internet, and things like that is ironed out, because it is hitting absolutely everyone here. But all things considered, I mean, even then, more so talking about that composition, talking about better yet on the St. James Madison side, I do like seeing the Neon come through. That's the only real differential I'm seeing in terms of what we see out of most compositions. Nothing too crazy there. Obviously, the Charlotte and the Clove selection, I'm not going to go ahead and really just rope around it about that too much, considering that, well, we've seen it recently, and even then, better yet, Fuzzy on top of that Vice. So, I mean, everybody on Charlotte, I mean, we've seen what they can be made of, and better yet, James Madison has on top of that. So I'm curious to see what they can really do in terms of adjustments and just going ahead and knowing what they're going to be ready for. Because, I mean, they had the leg up in this. They haven't been on stream very long. They had still also just been absolutely running things, being the number 1-2 seed overall. So knowing that they're going to be here, knowing that they have these expectations cut out for them, and knowing that even then, better yet, they get to face bigger and greater teams just outside just the Southeast in terms of scrims, gives them that kind of leeway to say, look, all this kind of hell within up our sleeve, we're not really having to expose too much, and even better yet, we don't get to see who's really firing on all just engines today, who doesn't have every single gear shifted in for the day just yet until these first couple rounds start kind of unfolding in front of us and saying, who can we really start pocketing? Who can we really start setting up? Because if you have that leeway, if you have that freedom of adjustment of that playbook, you can let Rari just go off somewhere else and start doing what they need to do. You can let Carouge just kind of go ahead and play that lurker, almost kind of like Nats inside of MEA right now, or better yet, we could just see it being plain old, Cart doing what Cart does, running in there and getting every single frag, so long as you have all that assistance from those initiators. So, I mean, it's that versatility of the composition, better yet than just the dictated roles off the rip.
Did feel like a lot of the times we saw in the Cumberland Phoenix game that Cart was just trying to run it down mid the entire time on Lotus. I remember we actually had a berating spree of about 4 or 5 rounds there for JMU that they just were continuously to run, even on defense, just running it down mid and just immediately falling into the loving arms of better gunners on the Cumberland Phoenix side, and that was just turning into bad fights. Now, the bigger question will be, are there better gunners for Charlotte, or are there better gunners for the JMU side? And I think Cart is a spectacular fragger. I think they are clinically talented. I think they're a tactician. I think when they can play alongside the team, they can really set up things. They can stabilize. I think they got in their head a lot in that previous series, and there's obviously some sort of variation or adjustment that JMU will have to do in total mind shift. Because keep in mind as well for here, if they watched any of that Oklahoma and Charlotte game, which was basically an instant SEL classic, doing what Oklahoma does, creating those for us here in the SEL Dallas. But if they were watching that game, and if I recollect correctly, Chicka Joe was in the chat watching that game, as they tend to do here for the SEL. They would have noticed that Charlotte on every pistol round, both on offense and defense for this map, just ran it straight down mid and rushed into B as fast as humanly possible. Right? They use speed, get into the site, engage up close with pistols, get the plant down, and then dictate control of the tempo past that point. Because it's a very hard site to retake, and there's no real ability to control the distance, so to say. And it just makes it a lot easier to have less of a peeker's advantage by all accounts, and to hold an angle a little bit more concisely with something like a Ghost, or even really up close to the Classic, which is a lot of what Charlotte were doing previously. So if JMU read into that at all, they're likely going to put a lot of point of emphasis in towards B. You can obviously see players stacked up there, but like you said, this is a timeout, a pause moment. So there is no real time that they have to worry about. They'll likely spread back over towards A a little bit further. And then, of course, Carouge has not gone anywhere. And they're likely to be closer towards B so they can have layered utility for both sides, as well as that toxic screen that'll be pretty valuable if they choose to engage with that. Maybe as a way to stall, maybe as a way to slow. Maybe the Viper will be enough to kind of create some proper engagement availability for Cart to help out on a lot of these pushes we've had for so long.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing really what's going on here. I mean, nothing too much we can really discuss considering the pistol round going to be a wild card in its own right and everything going forward. But even in the bigger picture of things, also talking about the winner of this matchup, seeing what's going to be going ahead at least. I mean, because I feel like we can go ahead and cash in a little bit on that and prior to the show rather than post. Saying that George Mason University did get that win over Texas State. I mean, even then, better yet, we do not believe that we will be seeing Texas State going forward, not because of the matter that, well, we don't want to see them with how impressive they were just in terms of their placings, but it seems like their team is no longer available to even play, not being able to field a full roster. So meaning that George Mason University moves on to be the likes of Cumberland Phoenix versus UGA Red. And that one, I'm not going to be putting UGA down in any type of way, being, UGA fan growing up, but Cumberland definitely has a leg up in that race. But knowing that no matter what, the winner of this can be facing up against UGA Black or Cumberland Destiny, which is also currently going on, which should be a good match in its own right. But we just saw Cumberland Destiny. We wanted to go ahead and show a highlight to the rest of the league, and even then probably would have picked up that match if we got, prior notice compared to this. So that's going to be insane in its own right, because you talk about James Madison not only making it to semis, but kind of just for a tiebreaker, but having to move on from that. And I will say they do what I feel like has kind of the better wild card side of the bracket. It feels like that top side isn't really too contested, too crazy, but that bottom side is where things are going to get a little bit dusty.
Match officially gets underway here on our first map of Lotus. And what else do we see besides Charlotte priming for a full sprint down here through B main into the tiny hall and out hopefully in towards the B site with success if you're a Charlotte fan, and hopefully shut down if you're a fan of the JMU roster. But they won't go as fast as they have previously. A little bit slower for them overall. Lots of utility at the ready, shockingly for a pistol round for JMU, as they've stacked up a lot of ordnance here with that Teo combo with the stun you can have from your Neon, as well as the value from a breach just waiting to connect through that wall. And Charlotte, realizing that they haven't really heard anything and there's been nothing elsewhere, they go, okay, I think they've read into our B side push. Let's start to move in towards the A side, and they get a good concuss off there towards Cruz in the back of their sight, and they'll start to now affect their will in here towards Hut and try to deal with Cruz as there they are flanked, and they just weren't ready for the Ruda and tandem swing of Fuzzy coming in from the main side.
Wasn't really ready for any of them, quite frankly. Sitting over there towards the outside on that pocket, not really able to see even that first player being kind of there, wanting to tuck away, thinking that everybody's going to be coming through that door, but instead we do see a bit of a split push. But nobody was watching that hallway or those secret stairs. So, I mean, it's a matter of just going ahead and understanding the rest of the map and giving yourself some leeway to be playing with, but there's really nothing so far. Seth also finds himself 2 more off the back of it, looking to just knock down the rest of the team, and it's clearly down to Ryrie with only 65 HP in the Dream, 39 with the blast pack being thrown up. I mean, there's a lot of shots going out, but you just can only get so many down as you see that first round going into Charlotte's favor.
Yeah, this is about what you'd expect for a round. We have a really effective offense overall, especially with Ruda, who's willing to kind of enclose that gap very quickly with the Rays. As long as they don't fall into this kind of trap of walking directly into the line of sight of JMU where the utility is primed and waiting, like we saw them waiting there into the entrance of B main, you can likely assume that they'll have a very quick effort in towards the A site. You combo Sif with the Sentry and the drone, where you can just very quickly get a ton of information in towards side, as well as get a huge spot and suppress along the way. You have Fuzzy, who's got an extra layer of flash alongside your breach, right? You have so many different ways to clear multiple angles simultaneously. It's a lot of instant value for Charlotte, which means their speed and tempo is nothing to scoff at in any capacity, and will hopefully prime them up for a couple first picks here for round 2, which is where they're going to kind of hope and rely on. They don't want to lose any players out front in space, but Cruz did get a little bit of damage there off towards Fuzzy, so maybe Charlotte will try to keep Fuzzy back a little bit if they can get up here towards the ult or maybe fight for that. But I don't know, they want to put the Vandal player out there in the open. They want the A side, and they're going to have no problems getting it because everyone on JMU is closer towards B and C and towards now defender spawn.
Yeah, just looking to stack up what they can, hopefully kind of winning that gamble and getting the majority of the players to go over there, so they have a bunch of kind of right clicks just waiting for them on that site with the classics in hand. But I mean, it's just not going to happen. They double down, they would go right back towards A. They're not going to be doing an attendance check by any means, and they wouldn't have learned much in this round because I doubt we're going to see the entirety of James Madison stack up towards C every single round going forward. But they are going to be looking at this retake. We're going to be seeing really where they can kind of be pushing up, but I mean, so far, not really so good, as Rita isn't even really buying anything up, just has the ghost in hand and still managed to find 3 in the process.
That's Ruda doing Ruda things. How many times are we going to be able to say Ruda the shooter today? Like, this is just what they do consistently here. And Ryrie is just going to kind of wait back here towards defender spawn. Wait out for the time being. They'll die to the spike. They don't want to let anything happen. You can fall even further back if you're Charlotte, because you know that you have the Teo salvo to layer back on top of the spike at any moment. So there's no chance for them to ninja defuse it in any capacity. And a very wildly successful round 2 for Charlotte off the back of it. Didn't lose a single one of the weapons they brought into it. And on top of that, the only person who didn't buy, that being Ruda, manages to find 3 kills, which gets them plenty of money to stage up in round 3 to meet up the effective same level of force that the team had for round 2 and moves on with, as well as getting the ultimate really highly tallied up. Now at 6 out of 8 of their pips, they could play a macro battle for ult orb economy, try to get that online, get a really free frag early on if possible for Ruda, and then try to stage up for a showstopper play around a corner to get into an opening towards site. And that could really help elevate this round 3 for Charlotte overall, but they may have to go more upfront with it, as it looks like they'll prime towards B here, Dallas, to stage up for a quick fight if they don't fall to JMU's util.
I mean, understandably so. When you look at the kind of weaponry they're working with, I mean, obviously you saw the Ghost during the past round, but even then you're looking at Phantoms, you're looking at Bulldogs, you're looking at Spectres, and even then you're looking to go ahead and get up close no matter what you're doing. But already Carr finding himself 3 in the process, showing that, well, there's the wake up. You just needed the actual rifles in hand. And we saw this even then during the last matchup at JMU. Looked a little bit sleepy, kind of getting things kicked off, but I mean, everything past this point, they have looked standstill when it comes around to having these guns in hand, because they have shut these guys down and they're not going to lack any more going forward.
Mur, what was that? Can we get a replay for that, Bolby? Not to throw Mur under the bus here, but I'd love to see that again. Oh, you missed it. Thank goodness, Ashley, for Mur's mental health after that one. Completely does not notice Ruda already in full deepest space just below platform to upper side of B. And Charlotte will still get absolutely eviscerated by the duo there of Cart and Murr throughout the entirety of that round. Very effective for them. Ruda was not able to find any kill in the round. The only orb they were able to tally comes off their death. And Cart was able to get so many that now they're one pip away. And it will ultimately come down to, it feels like, the duelist, which one will find themselves first with an ultimate in their hand, as Charlotte are hemorrhaging utility out to try to barrage in towards Karus here on the C site. They want to get in fast. They'll step through the toxic cloud, not worried about the decay. Ruda's deep within sight, gets a ton of damage towards Karus, but the hops and skips keeps Karus online to make sure that ultimate for Ruda is not online. And with the plant coming from C's, it's going to be an uphill battle now for return over this land here for JMU, as so many are coming from Waterfall. A slow crawl from Cart. Fuzzy's not looking the right way, almost still gets the turn for him, but doesn't just yet. It's 3-on-4 now, with Ruda rinsing through Karus and finishing the job they started. That's a showstopper online, and they're not just done with the Phantom yet. They had one more in them, but Cart has a stand instead. A 2 on mount, 1 bottom of sight. Cart, easy frag for Pichu. And Pichu, they'll easily lose their life thereafter. Murr has no chance to contend against this spike and wants to just be as dramatic as possible to buy time before eventually the call out is made with the salvos barraging the spike plant that they just got to get out of dodge here, Dallas, and say, I got to hold on to the weapon for the next round.
Yeah, just looking to go ahead and hold out as much as you really can there, just making sure that you invest as much utility as possible. At least kind of go ahead and just get that tap up before you did leave. But I mean, Murr saw the salvo come through, knew that there was no real shot to even touch that without dying in the process. So just going to go ahead and get out of dodge and go to the next one. But I mean, still, when you look at that round and you see how much was lost in the process, I mean, just looks good overall, but I mean, not enough to really go ahead and put either team into an eco situation just yet. So, I mean, the big scheme of things, we're going to be seeing these kinds of rounds. And even then, better yet, I mean, Cart wasn't even really on site for that retake just yet. Was really lacking behind until we saw that Fuzzy get the first kill. Tried to take care of that. Knew that the kind of roadblock was taken care of. And then finally arrived on site to say, Ruda, your reign is over. Like, I'm here now. This is that duelist v duelist matchup that we're expecting to be seeing come over and over and over again. And if we're just waiting on Cart on defense, that's going to be its own thing. But on attacking side, he should always be there and present inside these fights. So Charlotte already having 3 rounds, going to be a good look for him going forward. But clearly they want a little bit more. And with a showstopper in hand, I think they can do it.
This first one out, lots of stun, lots of utility into Link through B, tossing in the paint shells as well, trying to keep them back. Not too much you can really do against RP there, except for just try to stall out for time. The toxic screen buys a lot of information, and eventually when it goes up and Pichu steps through, that is a frag for them, but they do lose their Viper of Karus nearly instantly afterwards. Showstopper out for Ruda. You're just waiting, if you're Murr, for that to be sent out towards upper side, a defender spawn, top of rope. And while Spike is down for Charlotte, they have to stage up now for this post-plant scenario, and there is plenty of options in front of JMU in terms to deny this. Ruda probably spotted from that, though it doesn't actually get them on the suppress. Cart knows they're there. That's a frag worthy of the JMU side. Cart will eventually succumb to the shots back from C's, but Fuzzy wants to go in fairly heavy here, and the stun may have just bought Ryrie enough time. They're sticking and they don't know. It's a free round for JMU off of a clutch defuse from Ryrie, who goes, yeah, I don't have to hop off this. I don't even have a rifle if I did. I'm just sticking this one, baby.
Yeah, just go ahead, be in there, have that environmental awareness, and know that, I mean, this seems like a possibility. Why the heck not? It's in a 1v3 situation regardless. So, I mean, just best shot, and sometimes it'll hit. And there it is. Able to go ahead and manage to get a second there in the process. And to go in at that, knowing that Charlotte, even then, they didn't only invest, obviously, all the guns and the money into that last round, just like everyone else, but better yet, also invested that showstopper where we didn't see Ruda get really any of an effect off of it. So, I mean, just good looks for them to know that that going forward is going to have a big effect. You're not going to be able to have that free push. You're not going to have that free kill. You're not going to have a massive follow-up. You're going to be looking to play more of the slow and steady game, just relying on your plain old vanilla utility that you're given at the start of every single round, or better yet, the ones that you buy up. So looking at Charlotte, shifting things over. They like to go ahead and find that mount control early, but as we see once more, as like every single round except for one this far, they want to be pushing over for that A side.
Slow crawl for JMU. They're just trying to relapse control once again towards A main, which is where Charlotte have really been hitting consistently. They poke one side, they move to the other, and then it's just always defaulting towards A, and that's fine. Teams do that. They have comfort zones, but it's about gauging where JMU's defense are starting to come back from, because it's a game of adaptability. Mert tries to move in from bottom stairs, or say top stairs in this state, though an easy frag in return for Charlotte, but they still are at a player disadvantage until Caruso goes in lopsided without any assistance from inside of A main from attacker's side. The Rolling Thunder will make things a whole lot harder for Cart, but I actually don't think they were tagged by that, but it's still a great swing by Sif to deal with them as Darby gets one extending from the backside of Hut. It's only Sif now remaining. They'll put down an Armageddon here, or is that just them throwing the salvos down? There's the Armageddon for JMU's Darby, and they'll stick through this defuse to give JMU now a tied score line of 3-3. And I don't know, if I'm Charlotte at this point, Dallas, I'm seeing a lot of failures and small mistakes, and even with ultimates, not a whole lot working for you well here on the A side. I would maybe look to find a little bit more back and forth variety for their teaks, even if they have to employ a little bit more here towards B. Just don't hit the A side so consistently, because every time we've seen JMU retake, they're getting more and more successful, and they're changing it every single time.
Well, I mean, it's a small swing every single time that really just go ahead and dictates the entirety of that retake. I mean, when you look at what Charlotte's doing so far, they don't have any flashes, which is totally fine, but I mean, you don't have really much controller power either. That's the big thing that we're going to be looking at. I mean, considering the Omen and the Viper versus the likes of having a Clove, the Clove will have the effect once you die, but you're not hoping that really happens, obviously. You're running more so that double initiator. You're trying to make the sacrifice for having that Sentinel in play, which should help Charlotte during that second half, but right here, right now, Fuzzy is still just playing kind of that wild card, playing that roamer, being that lone wolf. But I mean, we have seen that work out well previously against other teams, but it's totally different once you're going up against James Madison. They're not going to let that happen. They are playing double controller, and these guys are bred through and through to be roamers, to understand that mentality and say, look, I will take those ones, and even better yet, that means that's less utility on site, which allows them to actually be pushing up, playing, making these retakes happen. But even then, on the initial takes, it still doesn't show much of a contention, because Ruda now being shut down in exchange for Caruso here leaves a good sign for the rest of the team to possibly get something done.
Ooh, Charlotte have a lockdown towards defender spawn. While Pichu had to use their ultimate here to come back into the foray, this will stall out for JMU. Unfortunately, they have not yet gotten the spike down, so a lot of the time that Pichu is buying by keeping JMU back isn't doing much for them in the long term of things. So here comes the overdrive from Cart, and their mobility, their swiftness, and their slidey nature elevates JMU rosters now to 2 kills in that final 3 fights, with the final one coming out here for your breach. It is a 4-3 now tally, and JMU are not really succumbing to the pressure, it feels like, for Charlotte's offense in towards these sites. Ruda is creating a lot of gaps, and it feels like Ruda is immediately swinging them afterwards without having the team just yet there. We saw that for the first frag in the extension in towards site for Ruda. They escape from the lines inside of Caruso, just to re-swing Caruso without having a second player there to save them. Literally half a second more of a delay on the swing, and you would have had still your player Ruda, your Rays in the fight to push through to defender spawn, and it'd be a lot more effective to kind of poke and prod at JMU through the ending stages of their setup for the post plan, as well as getting the plant down sooner. It's a large delay on getting that down, which made Pichu's use of the ultimate a lot more squandered in total effect.
Well, I mean, seeing how this thing's going to be kicking off. Oh, Cart. I hope we learned our lesson.
Back to doing Cart things.
I hope we learned our lesson. I never, which even then, I'm an operator hater, obviously. Residential. I mean, it's just kind of built in. Fair enough. I like to see the kind of nitty-gritty fights. I like to see the slides. I like to see all that kind of action that comes out. And I mean, I understand every now and again, going ahead, making that investment, looking to go ahead, get those free one-shots off. And it will make more sense to be in Darby or another player's hands. But, well, Cart clearly not really having much retake ability, but better yet, not having a presence at all in this round. Being just knocked off immediately. So, James Madison, only with 4 players remaining, as you mentioned, Ruda and Sif, able to go ahead and kind of hold things down relatively well. It really just comes down to whether or not we can see Ruda actually make that presence just there. Make it just redeemable. Make it threatening relatively early to where you're not only pushing on a site, but you're pushing beyond that site. But it doesn't even really have to be the case here as well. Ruda hasn't even had really much of a pitch to make inside of this round so far with over and over and over again. We've clearly seen that. I mean, already Fuzzy with the first. Here's Darby with the retake. Rolling Thunder coming out, and there it is. Messenger Tejo doing things where he says, look, my duelist may be dead, but so help me God. Some of us has to still shoot back.
Harpy is an absolute menace That's not even like abating a player in the process either. That is purely them taking engaging swings and counteracting a lot of that. There's the final connection. Karoo's lapped back in through B, through Waterfall's side to be right next to Darby. They knew their only option was to head into the C site or rotate into B, so they made sure they're both in the exact same spot. And just look at the way that this just devolved so quickly overall for Charlotte. Everything you're doing into C main that you weren't comfortable with doing previously and you're trying to attempt here once again. You found the 2 first bloods. You didn't find any success afterwards. It didn't feel like they were actually able to step into the site whatsoever. If you're getting these kills, that's then Ruda's responsibility to boost back into sight and create space and opportunities for the team to walk in. This is where your value for a raise over something like a Neon, over something like a Jet, which does have a tailwind and an updraft to get some distance and movement, a Waylay, right? This is where the raise makes the biggest difference. They got a lot more momentum, a lot more speed, more frag potential, as well as space clearing with the paint shells on top. I'm not seeing that right now from Ruda. I'm seeing them gun well. I'm seeing them fight. But we need to see them be way better about keeping JMU honest on these sites and not letting them play their game. And that's just not what we're seeing right now. JMU feel in control and the scoreline is starting to look like it.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it earlier out of Charlotte, right? We saw them able to go ahead and take these sites aggressively. We saw the kills just come through almost flawlessly. I mean, Ruda just doing what Ruda needs to do. And then Sif kind of going ahead and picking up the reins once we do see Ruda kind of go 6 feet under. But everybody on the side of James Madison, and it's just a lot more cohesive. They understand really what the responsibilities are, and they all just kind of don't really kind of rely on each other too much. I mean, while it's going to go ahead and show up a little bit when it comes around to the attacking side, I mean, Cart running out there and basically getting himself killed, that should be something that James Madison is used to. As much as we're going to go ahead and gripe on the guy for it, James Madison is saying, hey, I mean, this is pretty usual, and we're still 2nd seed overall. But that's just because we know the rest of us can also go ahead and get the job done. And we see it here, able to go ahead once more. Darby literally just swinging, basically having no assistance besides a couple extra bodies, and still managed to clear out 3, saying, well, that's all part of the plan at the end of the day.
It really stinks that Charlotte has so much vaudable history here in the SEL now, recently even, for the map of Lotus. And JMU is not a team that like kind of waits. They actively practice, they VOD review, they do their research, they have a coach that is really into trying to get this to be the best team possible, and has obviously succeeded in a lot of accounts for it. They're not a team that will make mistakes when they are well prepped, and if things get out of hand, it never feels like they're out of hand for long. And Charlotte, I don't know, it does feel like a lot of the ways that we've seen them be effective previously, which was their staging for pushes into sight. Look, you're dealing with the one-way Omen dark cover that's layered up on Pillar, stepping into Mound. You counter a 2 pieces utility and a close swing under that, even though your feet would be visible, but you're using the stun from your breach to counteract the swing out from Arch. You use the Teo salvo off towards Waterfall. That makes it so they can't fall back there very easily. And you would think if you're Charlotte, okay, this opens up Mound, we should be able to fight this. Well, JMU have this tiny little sliver where there is no utility hitting them, in between the Waterfall salvo, in between the breach utility out into Mound, and then the moment that they have a chance, they have one person tugging close corner towards Waterfall to get a crossfire closer to Mound, and 2 that are swinging the actual archway for kills. JMU know what Charlotte are going to bring to the table, likely because they've done VAR reviewing as well as played plenty of teams on this map. And Charlotte are going to have to start doing what we say a lot of the times here, Dallas. They have to start improvising. They have to start adapting on the fly because they've already broken even at 6. And JMU's not a team that's likely to lag back and let it go any further out of hand, especially in an eco round like this for Charlotte.
Yeah, I mean, already going ahead and being shut down as well in some regard, where you do see that duelist matchup going ahead and finding itself in the direction of James Madison, with Cart finding that early kill on Ruda right off rip. And well, what do you got? 4 players left. You do have the Annihilation, or excuse me, the Armageddon to be running with, but even in the Rolling Thunder as well. So, I mean, you do have something kind of set the tone there if you feel like you want to be taking these fights and trying to find yourself a bit of an advantage anywhere, or better yet, just kind of capitalize off any given moment. But, I mean, it stands at the time. There's just not much to play with here. A lot of denial. James Madison just looking to go ahead and really drive that thing in. I mean, as you see the Viper's Pit going through, I mean, you can't blame him at this state, right? I mean, there's barely enough rounds left. You don't really care too much about what it looks like in a rifle round because you're going to be overwhelmed on that C site. Just use it as a way to say, hey, let's funnel these guys over towards B and towards C. And even off the back of it, I'm surprised we haven't seen Cart say, I'm just going to go ahead and make my way over there as well, because surely, Viper, you should have this on your own.
Huge paranoia and hopes maybe to stall for this. Darby uses the Annihilation and can line up all of them escaping from Tree. And while they do get 2, look at the value now you're finding once again, and you've had the entire round to wait out this Charlotte roster. C's trying to reclaim as much grounds for the round as possible. They know it is lost, but they will at the very least try to hold on to a weapon or maybe drop some weapons from the opposing side's hands. But any more than the single that they had found there will elude them, and JMU will climb to the coveted, a positive now halftime scoreline of guaranteeing 7 with 2 more rounds possibly in front of them if they have anything to say about it. But look at the way this broke down. 25 seconds left for Charlotte. Not enough time to really work with anything. They have to step in towards guard, and Darpy goes, hey, with the way I've been playing recently, I'll get my ultimate next round if I use it right now. So I have no problem engaging the Annihilation here to stall out even further. They won't even make it to site, and even if they do, we'll have players staged up to contend. And Charlotte have to get back to the books and prepare for this next round because they've only got 2 attacking rounds left, and then it'll be a defense that, while they do have the Sentinel of Eyes, Dallas, I don't know, JMU seems like a force that's hard to stop.
And even then, I mean, when you look at this kind of map and what it provides, I mean, you look at the Harbors every now and again, you look at the Vipers coming to play from some teams, they utilize those as Sentinels because this map is so nitty-gritty, and especially if you can find yourself the shots off everything, I mean, the Viper feels even better. You're going ahead, deteriorating that armor completely as soon as they step through a wall or through a bubble, and guess what? Makes it that much easier of a fight to win. So, I mean, every single time, Caruso, even then better yet, showing a highlight of that, able to go ahead and make almost anything out of nothing. So, looking great to get things kicked off, find initial blood, get the heck out of there, and then see what the rest of your team can do once they start to arrive. But that's the issue is you can't let this clock tick very long because with that Annihilation and Rolling Thunder, they are purely just letting the clock run down, and they're just looking to buy time. But one of those has already come through. There comes the Armageddon. The Rolling Thunder comes out as well, but Caruso is there for the shots off one. Can't find the shots on the Pichu, but it is a very easy call for the rest of the team to flood that joke.
Jeez, JMU tear apart. And this is a round in comparison where 2 rounds ago, they levied the effective confrontation of Charlotte's util through Mound in a very direct way. This time, it's only Caruso on the C site, engaging by themselves, waiting for the breach utility. Charlotte didn't even play the passive approach into Mound. They didn't go for the long play of saying, let's use a small step player through the dark cover one way, or step back in with a heavy swing from the breach util to then go through archway. No, they waited to get that closer to Mound. They wanted to send it into the waterfall wall, past it into the back of site where they know that Cruz has been staying so consistently. And look at the way that Ruta gets back to site. They're up there. They boost back into space. They claim ground, but it's another fight that's lost. And it's not like Cruz is playing out of their mind, but Cruz is playing statistically even yet as the best player for Charlotte if they were on that side. There's a difference in overall capacity right now, it feels like, and JMU are really trying to stride ahead as they're looking for a 9th here, and Cart's not on the best of foots to start it with the operator shot missing and a ton of damage being dished out.
Well, I will say the benefit of at least this kind of round, when you look at it, is that the Steel Guard looks a lot more effective whenever you really get down to things compared to what we got out of the Rolling Thunder and the Armageddon. But issue is still, you're not engaging off the back of it. It's stressful seeing over and over and over again Charlotte trying to throw these big X buttons out there and say, maybe it's a difference maker. You still gotta make that difference happen. You still have to be a catalyst for that change, and we're just not seeing it there so far. Even then, I was supposed to die in that situation, but just clearly doesn't. And here it is, Carton team going ahead, showing up, being here on site 3v3, and it's relatively similar in terms of the health pool, but you don't have as much of a denial and of a retake possibility because, well, you're expecting maybe with the operator in hand, it's going to look a little scuffled, it's going to be a little difficult, but even then still, we see Charlotte just going ahead and having players not die once, but twice, and it's down to Caruso and can't get the shots off to finish it. So in an 8-4 half, Charlotte, I mean, we saw those 3 initially. We saw them look good, but James Madison, past that point, had just really ran through with flying colors. And, well, now they're on the attacking side. And as I mentioned earlier, Fuzzy is good when he's playing that lone wolf. He feels good when he's playing that kind of crazy game of being a catalyst of just chaos. But, well, James Madison, they're ready for this. Double controller, double initiator. They will create this map and paint it in the exact picture they want to portray.
Keep in mind as well there for Charlotte, they're in a post-plant scenario where they're wanting to stage up, like typical for defaults, right, for post-plants, towards Mound, and that gets completely usurped by JMU playing full map control. All of that, you then are trapped on site. You have the hope I can win this next fight button out of Pichu for the resurrection again. And then after that, you're just having to rely on C's, who is a very effective player. I've highlighted C's nearly every week now, it feels like, here for State of the SEL, but you're stuck into this scenario where they've got to be unpredictable. They have to adapt on the fly, and we finally see Charlotte do enough of an edge that gives them a much-needed round win. And here's the speed now from JMU on their offense. So there is a Vice on the opposing end, and the wall comes up, isolating Pichu and Cart for an engaging 1v1, but it goes in favor for JMU, and that little bit of breathing room that should have been there for Pichu, unfortunately, no longer there, as Fuzzy even gets Ryrie on the swing thereafter, despite so many of JMU taking the heavy rotate from the B-side initial rush in through Waterfall and now into the C site. The post-plant scenario is in full effect for our 13th round of this first map, and Sif is doing it blind, knocks off Carouse, now deals with Darpy. Mur trapped in the corner by boxes, and Charlotte get the pistol to get up to 5.
I mean, able to go ahead and manage to get both these pistols. Good looks for them, making sure they find themselves a 5th, want to carry things on. Clearly, probably going to get the 6th off the back of it, but I mean, everything else from here, I mean, as we saw earlier, James Madison is just not very sufficient in these pistol rounds, at least on the day so far. Not looking to really kind of lock these things down. Had a great idea in terms of making sure to kind of push the initiative towards that B side. Don't let it get stagnant. Make sure to kind of transfer it through that defensive side of the map towards C. But I mean, they lost a lot through that process. I mean, that one singular player over towards Waterfall, you saw the triple player swing. You're expecting, okay, maybe Cart throws his life onto the line. I mean, he's probably going to die in the process. Not the end of the world. But, I mean, you still managed to get a kill, get some good shots off into the rest of the players that were there because, I mean, just the kill and exchange wasn't made fast enough. So, I mean, it's just an awkward situation that James Madison really just kind of blundered on.
Possibilities moving forward for JMU, now knowing they only have their pistols, and they have to play into the comfort ground of Charlotte, where they have to close into a very tight space where they can kind of control how far their weapons will be most effective at. Guardians, Inspectors, and everything of the sort will be a lot better than the Ghost and Classic that you're really... only thing you have to rely on for JMU. Bar Mur up front here. Does have a Sheriff that's looking to maybe take a couple players off. Big wide string coming out from both Darpy and Karth, though. It will eventually go for a 1-for-1 trade. That's a Bulldog now in the back of sight that is very much so viable, but Sif lines up too, deals with him instantly, and Darpy, while only finding a single refrag, will also forfeit their life, and Carouse just has to make the most of this round. 3 players dead for Charlotte. This is pretty darn good, though, Dallas. This is a good round for JMU to bury the eco heading into our 15th round in this map. And there's still chances now for more. There's not likely a weapon to be collected here and available for them, but they could sneak up quite well behind here in through Link to maybe catch a player off guard. As there was Carouse hunting to hope find something there in that corner. Spike very visible in front of them. Likely player by box, they're staging for a 1-on-1. High ground variation, the Sheriff not very good for that, and it's a free frag, especially when you consider the Outlaws in hands for Fuzzy, and that will one-shot any player without any armor, and that's really what they were stuck with if you're JMU, but what a successful round nonetheless for them, taking everything out of Charlotte's hands.
Yeah, and even then, I mean, you saw the discipline there from Charlotte. Looking to go ahead, push out a little bit, hold that lane back towards spawn off B, making sure to wait a second, play it slow, play together, see if anything happens, then have that coverage for the player with more of an automatic weapon to give that coverage as that drone goes out to make sure that entire lane is clear back towards B-side spawn, and then just turning around once you understand that there is nobody coming from this direction. Find that double stack, get that kill. It's only one guy, and then, well... and a 1v2, you should be winning it. But regardless, as you mentioned, a lot of things sacrificed in the process just to really get there. We saw James Madison knock out a couple guns in the process, making sure it only goes down to 2. So that's the majority of the arsenal there in Charlotte that they're having to go ahead and kind of compensate for in a round like this. But they've already done a pretty good job of it, considering they've done some pretty good damage in the process just to get things kicked off.
How slow will JMU decide to play out the majority of this attacking half? Time will tell, but Charlotte are trying to get some easy damage trickling through. This is Ruda. The most spammable wall and objective it feels like in the game right now. The Sheriff isn't super good at it, but he gets the job done. He can get some good damage and some good trickle effects in, especially when Ryrie's already down to 28 HP. A single shot, even through that wall, the Sheriff should get the job done. But Charlotte are priming up some util, and Pichu's waiting to get a secondary smoke online. But wow, what a hit and connection from Ruda. Sheriff for more, and Cart gets stuck after a flash and the inner engaging of this door swinging. And it's 2 dusted for JMU. You still have to go further and beyond. Pichu off to Ryrie. Sif gets 2, and Charlotte have primed themselves up for a very successful defensive half. Now 3 in a row, breaking the mold of Valorant here, Dallas, and are now 1 away from tying JMU, who were twice their tally entering the second half.
Yeah, just good looks. I mean, able to go ahead and find themselves 7. We're just looking at this comeback. We're looking to see if things can really start just unraveling here for James Madison. I mean, obviously a great first half when it came around to being on that defense, but they just haven't really found that slow tempo or those windows of opportunity they want to find on this attacking side. I mean, Charlotte is playing this very together. I mean, same kind of formula and faction that we've seen towards that first half, but it's just working better on this defense. James Madison hasn't really had the same kind of level of play that we were expecting prior, but with a massive investment already going out towards the initial C mound push, we've already seen a retaliation with Darby, that player who found three 3Ks during that first half, now able to go ahead and be shut down relatively quickly in this first one, and that was the ultimate that James Madison was probably eyeing to be that game changer, to be that thing that really sets the tempo for the round. So we're going to see what the rest of the team can kind of manage and struggle together because, well, they're going to be running into a whatever they allocate towards this A site versus just Fuzzy. And what do you know? Fuzzy's the one who comes out on top, able to go ahead and at least knock down 2 in the process. Gets shut down afterwards, but, I mean, you've already done your work.
Job's mostly done. JMU can at least get this plant down and try to infect their will. Charlotte has so many players coming from so many directions, and there's not really much utility left for JMU in terms of being impactful in the later stages. The Neon maybe can get a relay belt, get a stun, try to find something for a frag with the Sheriff. They'll see Ruda, and that's a great frag. Chance more for Sif, but the stairs play, and the quick use of the fast lane wasn't enough to keep them obfuscated. As there goes the salvos, layering in both. Tree, not really a great option anymore, but it's great stun for Murr. Now the barrage to go for a good damage on top. Spike wanted to be teased and touched, but it may not matter as Pichu gets a wonderful double swing alongside Sif. The side here of Charlotte knows they've got this round, and it will be 4 in a row to the start of the second half, tying this game up now 8-8. You see back this replay here. Maybe. No. Here it is.
Yeah, just a whole lot of util.
Oh my goodness. Neon running all the way back.
Just get the hell out. Yeah. I can't even believe with the kind of guns in hand Darby even wanted to swing that. But I mean, I guess you're just maybe thinking of the possibility of somebody swinging just on the off chance, but you're an initiator, man. Come on. Let one of the controllers do that. Can't be losing them salvos
after with that loss of life for the agent as well. I think JMU right now just haven't really figured out how to stage themselves on this offense. No site has worked for them at all yet, Dallas.
Well, I mean, it's these fights that they're taking. I mean, they feel like relatively slow pushes, especially in comparison to what we were seeing out of Charlotte. And even then, you have a Neon who's arguably faster, which, I mean, her whole identity is being the fastest. She's running everywhere, just doing whatever. So, I mean, I'm surprised that we're not seeing these just initial aggressions being more, front forward, being just a lot more prevalent, just being huge on James Madison's side. I mean, I understand the double controller going ahead, kind of liking to play a little more kind of a tactician role here on the attacking side. But, I mean, still, you got to at least have some idea what's going on. So I think if you're going to be kind of doing something, I would say maybe look for some defaults. You already know that Fuzzy's over by themselves on the A site. You learned that during the last round and all the rounds prior. So you can explore that because you're not going to run into an entire arsenal of util flooded at you like you do towards Mount. So, I mean, it's just really flexing out. And then once you see if secret's taken or just destroyed in that case, get the heck out and see what you can do somewhere else.
A lot of Charlotte's offense was really revolving around the tandem initiation that you can have with an Arc Rose from your Vines, as well as the obvious Breach utility. And then if you combo that with either Darby or with Sif, right, with the destructive ordinance that comes from Mateo, but that's really just space initiation. The flash initiation felt like it was really there for Charlotte, and it was super good. Fuzzy was elevating in through Tree. Your Breach is doing everything. Seize is so strong. But at the same time, JMU feel like they're maybe lacking something to cut a sightline away. Maybe that is that hurt of not having a Vice for this map. Who knows? But Karuz is trying to be the difference maker. And we see the attempt here as there's a gun not in hand for Pichu. And it was a close call for Karuz nonetheless. But they're now prowling in closer towards defender spawn. They'll just get past the initial swing in the dump of util. But C's will refrag. But you got your damage done on C. They fell for the bait, and you've now got a free A site if you're JMU for a plant, and it will go down, and the salvo will not find any damage or stall you away from any time as your player down below and drop of cart gets 2 for their luxury.
Rounds like this are what we were kind of expecting out of this attacking side. I mean, Seeing what James Madison has managed, seeing what they've done so far, but Charlotte didn't really have much of an actual hold towards that secret door. So they wanted to allocate. We even saw the rotate, all 3 players queuing to say, hey, go back and find your way back over to those stairs or go back over to the ramp. But I mean, when you see all those smokes being there, that's the big thing. These smokes are what's really going to set the tone for the game here because, well, keep in mind what Charlotte has to work with. Just the breach. Both these teams have just the breach. So they don't have flashes. They can pop up outside of those smokes. They don't have another way to really just break through the mold and those walls that the smokes provides because, well, they can't be flashed. So, I mean, we have to see really what this team's going to do because once James Madison finds these walls established, once they get these dark shrouds just settled down and create this entire field of illusion, that's when Charlotte's really going to be dismantled, just kind of lost, swinging, and having to check everything surrounding them just at every single turn. But if they play a little more forward, play a little more aggressive, so long as James Madison doesn't read into that, or so long as you can kind of catch him off, or better yet, just even meet the fight, you should be set for that.
Winner of this goes on in a series, the victor of Cumberland Destiny versus the side of UGA Black. I wonder how the game is going so far. Actually, probably should take a look. Apparently, UGA Red has put up a pretty interesting map against Cumberland Phoenix. That is to say, they got 9 rounds in a map. They lost map 1, but apparently map 2 was turning into a pretty interesting affair. Map 1 has already been confirmed, it seems, for that Phoenix Destiny game, or sorry, for the Cumberland Destiny game versus UGA Black. And a lot like we were kind of expecting there, Dallas. It turns into Cumberland Destiny doing what they needed to do and getting the job done. 13-3 of all things against UGA Black. The last split victors in a team that's very confident. Now, they did say they don't care too much about this split in the playoffs. They just wanted to get LAN, and they confirmed that. But still, Cumberland Destiny are wanting to also make it to LAN and see what they can do. Root up, boost pack to try to escape. Trap now, showstopper in hand. Can't get it fired after the second boost pack sent them upwards. And Darpy gets the first frag of this round, hoping to get JMU one more on top. But Sif, no, can't get a next, and neither can Seize.
Nice.
It's a total dismantling of Charlotte on this A main side. There's 3 players there, and a 4th not far inside B. And none of them barely found any damage anyways under a single player for JMU. And finally, one bullet has to connect, and the bullet connects in a way that gives them a free instant kill. And a hit fire for another one, why don't you? But it's double digits first for JMU. They've seemingly stopped the bleeding. That was the start of the second half.
I do want to give quick credit to Darpy while it's on the mind. Congratulations for being probably the sole funder of Apex Esports, because I don't think I've seen another player ever buy that bundle for that team. But maybe just likes orange.
Youch.
Right there. So just want to put that out there. I mean, credit to you, obviously. But I mean, back obviously on topic. I mean, James Madison, though, finally getting themselves into form and seeing what they're doing here. I mean, it's good looks. It's what we were expecting out of this attacking side. And obviously, when you lose the first 2, I mean, that's to be expected. You lose that 3rd, that's detrimental. You lose the 4th, you got to go right back to the mentality of saying, it's expected. I mean, you're back on an eco. Things aren't going to look too hot for you. But, I mean, that's the point where you're saying, if we lose this one more, what are we doing? And, I mean, James Madison, I mean, we've already seen them learn plenty of lessons. We've seen them find plenty of ditches to dig themselves. But, I mean, even then, they never really lay in them. They just kind of understand that that's a place we don't really want to be stuck in. That's a situation we don't really want to be held hostage to. And we see the exchanges being made. We see the wake-ups occur, and we see them lock in and understand that, I mean, there's a job to be done, and they get it done. But there's still a couple more rounds left. We already see Murr with a good bit of damage taken off of him here, but with the 3 ultimates in hand, I think they have a way to compensate. Once the spike goes down with that Viper's Pit, just going to be absolutely detrimental to them. But even then, the Steel Garden is also up and available to kind of counter that.
Oh, they'll have to have the chance to use that. Fuzzy is nowhere near as of the moment. They could use it for the retake. The Armageddon's online. It could be a great way to stall it out, as well as having the overdrive. So there's not a whole lot of... It's not the best thing in the world. The Neon really does counter it to a good level. Maybe they were readying that. Pichu gets themselves taken off.
Investing
goes for
this?
the resurrection. Fuzzy goes in. Lineup maybe for Ryrie, but they ran out of ammo on the gun, and they even go for the garden as well. But they'll be forced off of the spike. No chance they can go further. Flashed again. There's the Armageddon to stall. They didn't even need the Neon afterwards. But what are you doing? Murd Carews easily sprayed through, and they'll try to stand in front of the player going for the defuse. The salvos trying to force them off. Just buy time. Darpy maybe a chance for one more, but just not there. And even though that ending in the post-plant Dallas felt like it lasted for 60 plus seconds, there was still plenty of time, 8 seconds more, for Charlotte to get that defuse out of the way.
I mean, just a lot of chaos there, just trying to find some level of result. And I mean, even then, I mean, it was great, but it just felt like there was too much going on in the comms there to really get the job done. I mean, we saw it over and over again there. I mean, right after the aftershock, salvos going down, everything kind of had a bit of a window to it, but not obviously perfectly timed. But you're not expecting to practice those exact instances. And even then, better yet, in the fray of battle, you can't nail that every single time as well. So, I mean, a lot of stressors, a lot of possibilities, but I mean, obviously, even then, better yet, just too much of an overextension there from James Madison. Your Viper, Caruso, didn't even have to die there, but just swinging out with the shorty in hand, expecting somebody to be close. Take a wider angle and just spray down the spike when you know you planted it towards that outer wall rather than being tucked away on that crate.
Where's the first fight going to end up being now for JMU? Good return into the second half after a poor start. They really didn't want to fall victim to the operator, and they picked the wrong site to not engage against it, but Pichu picked the wrong spot to pull the trigger, missing just to the right of the player stepping in through main, and B site is now arguably there for the taking for JMU. Spike is down. It's even frags past this point. Eventually an even one came for Charlotte, but then it was a 1-for-1 thereafter. Sif's trying to come from Waterfall, does have C's nearby, but Rude is coming in fairly drastically, and that Rolling Thunder finds 0 players there for James Madison as the flash goes and Ryrie is not tested by it. One more head, down goes Ruda, checking, and there's your third. Come on, check out your hotel. You're heading to the land at this rate, JMU, because you're 2 rounds away from hitting out map 1, and Charlotte, I don't know. This is a close map, but they're going to have to bring a little bit more as well to map 2 to get that just the 3 rounds after the couple needed to get a secured win here. And we know it was tough for them when it came to the second map in their Oklahoma game series.
I even love the confidence there from Darby and Merge. Just understand they do have the utility to play back, but I mean, seeing how far away they are, they're just back in spawn playing dice with each other. As Ryrie's saying, oh, he should get it, right? If not, unfortunate. But I mean, he's the one at that point who understands I don't have help, but good God, I gotta live and we gotta get this round. So 11-9 is the stance. A couple ultimates to work on the side of James Madison, but not the most influential ones in the world. No Armageddon to play with, no Rolling Thunder, and no Caruso. So that's another crazy thing to get things kicked off with. I mean, you can't really pick up that gun, but Ruda definitely didn't get away for free off the back of it. So, I mean, with that guy being threatening as is, hasn't really been as much of a presence on this defense until, you know, obviously opening picks like that.
See, he's only player here top of stairs, and what a spray down from Ryrie. First to the head, Cart can't escape though, and the team was just too slow to be there in time. That's unreal levels of miscoordination on timing for JMU, and this just cannot be something that can be allowed to continue for their program and for this team if they want to be able to close out this map successfully quickly and have a great shot of it for map 2, let alone moving on to the playoffs where they'll have to face off the winner of the Cumberland Phoenix or Cumberland Destiny game and UGA Black. That's if they can survive the next few here against Charlotte. As Fuzzy's the only one now to find a frag for them in this round, hoping to pull off a miracle in this desperate 1v2 post-plant scenario on A site. Default there in line, Merge jump peeking with a swing, Ryrie inside tree getting some shots through the wall, and Fuzzy now knowing where Mur is just needs to collect themselves, but can only collect as little bits of credits as they can, because this next round's looking pretty dicey as well in the economy, and it could very well be the last one as JMU are at match point for our first map of the series.
Yeah, difficult situation to be looking at here. Obviously, for Charlotte, this being their map pick, you're expecting a strong showing from them, and they definitely gave a bit of it to us, a glimpse of what they could accomplish during the beginning of that second half, but everything leading up towards it wasn't all for nothing. I mean, they managed to get the pistol rounds. They clearly have a better understanding, because those are the rounds where you can really just kind of tell, like, all right, let's go ahead and give ourselves a free 2 of them. And that's where they invest a lot of research. But, I mean, going beyond that and kind of understanding what's going to happen once the rifles come out, once the full kits come through, it gets a lot worse, and it gets a lot more hectic, better yet. So, I mean, you got to make sure to be ready for these things. And James Madison, well, considering, as I said, and once these guns get in their hands, well, it's back to business. So, with the guns in hand of everybody in a round like this, we're going to see what they can manage. Already trying to push it onto the C site. You know that Cart is now trapped, but doesn't have nothing with him. Has at least Ryrie, at least for a second, and then, well, the drone to follow up as well. But still in a 4v5 situation. We haven't seen James Madison not come through with these before, so it just comes down to Charlotte holding down the fort.
4-on-5. Charlotte have still a good stance to step back in towards this round. The salvos will keep them off of the spike plant for the time being. Tosted as well with a destabilize from Peach here. Could have been a great way to open up a potential frag, but you just have to win the trade game right now. Don't let things go out of hand. Don't get JMU for 2 in a row and just try to win off of numbers. Murr's now the only one left. Darby eventually falling on sight, and Murr will sprint their way on over to the A site where maybe they can take down their doppelganger of C's here, as they would be the first one to be here on the A site, but they'll go for an ult orb. That will get them that rolling thunder just a little bit sooner. They die here in this round or even get a kill. No matter what happens now on this A site, they will have that pip, and there it is, guaranteed. And James Madison are now stepping, continuing, still knocking on the door of match point, but they now have 3 ultimates on top. Cart with the overdrive. Even if they had an eco within these next 2, they'd be fine. You also still have the rolling thunder now online, and the from the shadows to bait for information and get a lot of intel. So maybe who's still on C side if you're hitting A, or maybe how the B side is looking overall. There's a lot of prep work that JMU have in front of them, and these ultimates will greatly help them as they'll go for a timeout. Maybe a good idea, reading what they have and maybe trying to gauge, is that garden available? And if it is, what is our counter? It's got to be the overdrive, right? And how willing are we to put Cart into that space and fight for it?
Well, better yet, is Cart going to be available when the time comes?
They don't die, yeah.
I mean, the Steel Garden's going to be more than likely used for a retake than anything else. I mean, that's where Cart's already going to have to go ahead and at least establish a bit of a ground ahead of the rest of the team back towards that spawn to find those kills, or at least just kind of go ahead and set the tone and really shut it down. But, I mean, we've seen fuzzing in 2 places, and it comes down to whether or not we want to see James Madison go for those pressure points early. Because say Fuzzy does go ahead and just get overwhelmed initially towards that C side, you can already see the ping coming through where they have an idea of say, what if we just get that thing out of the way off the get-go? But Fuzzy could also just opt in to say Steel Garden early. I know it's a full flood. I know they're going to be investing for something like this, so I can go ahead and get the return and hopefully at least take down 2-3 in just during that window of time. Or just at least go ahead and create denial. But, I mean, James Madison has to understand that if it does happen, you have to commit. You have to utilize those numbers. You have to get that spike down as soon as you can, because if the guy is investing in Steel Garden that early, it's more so a matter of saying he's maybe just desperate, has no help in this fight, has no way to really go ahead and fight back except for his own gun, and that's going to be the only real leg up. So, looking for this early mound control. You haven't done it fast enough because you can already see the rotation's being queued.
Fuzzy goes for an engagement early. This is JMU poking and prodding. They want more. And they'll do so towards Mound initially. But leaving up the toxic screen and leaving Karus closer towards A would incline me to believe they'll use them as either a straggler to get in towards B site, or maybe as a final pivot point thereafter. If they leave Ryrie up front, they can use that Omens from the shadow for more, but this is another state where JMU have 2 players nearby, but they aren't working in the same swing, and it turns into a should have been a free frag for the first, but slight mistake makes it a 1-for-1 because they're too slow in for the retrade. It's just, this is, JMU's better than this, and they've got to be able to prove that. But this round's still staged up well. 4-on-4. A-site still has the chance to peruse around if you're Ryrie. You could still take door with the switch over from Mound into B if you wanted to. But Darby's getting information. Can maybe try to see if Fuzzy is there. Do they get the full peek? I think they will have spotted Fuzzy there with the eventual explosion there with that sentry drone. And they'll be prepped for this work as Cart has to wait within these vines. Trying not to take too much damage. But like we said, they want to make sure that overdrive is online. That's why Ryrie was the first one out the gate earlier. As Cart will hide in now behind Pillar, and Fuzzy goes for it. Overdrive online. Swing the corner. Goes before they could. They don't overdrive it. And now Ruda's got a showstopper. It doesn't go anywhere. Just to clear out whoever was on default. That lines up a Karuz 1-for-1 as Darby's there. And Karuz gets 2 of the final 3 needed. And the overdrive was not a necessity, and seemingly no ultimates in that round were a necessity for JMU, as they'll get the job done, even adding 1 more to their repertoire throughout that final round to secure themselves the victory on our first map there of Lotus.
Yeah, I mean, good looks coming out from Charlotte to geek things up, but even then, obviously better yet from JMU, considering they're the number 2 seed, seeing this discrepancy of rounds not being literally less than the actual number between the 2 seedings of these squads. So, I mean, that's a good testament to what Charlotte can do today, but the problem is that was their map selection. That was the one they wanted to go to. That was the one that they obviously showed a lot of merit for when they got around to that second half, but that was only on the attacking side. That defense was an absolute dismantling, and not the worst case that we could have seen, but an 8-4 isn't pretty, especially when you're sitting in a quarterfinal scenario where you're having to step things up, and this is where it really starts to matter. But as you mentioned prior,
this team's already qualified for LAN. So, I mean, they may not be stressing the big things nearly as much as they typically would, knowing they have that guarantor. But, I mean, this is about as good a practice as you're going to get before that LAN comes around. So they're going to make sure to at least kick it up as best they can in the meantime.
What Ruda said with a great confidence earlier to our social media manager, CLT clears 2-0 JMU, easy peasy, something along those lines. They also said something thereafter. I'm not going to mention that on broadcast, though. But they did say that they viewed that they could win this 2-0. That is obviously not going to be in their future. They will have to pull a full comeback now throughout these next 2 maps to secure that, which means not only do we have to deal with our second map here of the day, which they've had trouble on and have also been pretty good about, that being Haven, but they also then have to head over towards Split, which is kind of a guessing game. We haven't seen a lot here from JMU on this. We've only seen it a couple times their history. It's kind of the same story there for Charlotte. So time will tell, but you got to survive map 2 first, CLT, and we'll have to see if that's in the books for your roster. Can JMU finish this in a 2-0 fashion, or will Charlotte Esports manage to make the comeback? We'll find out after a quick break. Don't go anywhere. after 13-10 talent, our first map of Lotus there, Dallas. We've had a pretty good series so far on our hands. But like we mentioned before the break, you got to get a whole lot more out of Charlotte if we're going to see a third map. And then you still got to see more out of them on that map to survive and make that full comeback, secure this series, and secure their spot. Well, they're already guaranteed for LAN, but to shut out JMU for the LAN, which as a team this good, you'd want to be the team to upset them to making it to a LAN. Can they get the job done? Let's figure it out.
Yeah, that's the big question, right? I mean, looking at Charlotte, obviously, I mean, being able to go ahead and manage to get enough points through, I mean, just a culmination the entire of the year. But, I mean, looking at better yet at that first semester, I mean, they have a long history when it comes around to the SEL. So, obviously, they're saying we should be a shoo-in for this thing, but they want to obviously make sure to bring it home this time. They want to win that. And if they go ahead and shut down one of their biggest competitors, one of the highest seed teams that is only here for that second semester half, then that's going to be a good look for them. They're going to say, hey, that goes ahead and puts a lot of stress off of our chest right now, going forward. And even more so, I mean, knowing that JMU may be coming back, that's going to be a great scrim partner if you can make sure to get those maps much further apart over the course of those next couple of weeks before that LAN actually occurs, to go ahead and make sure you can really fix a lot of those problems that you're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, if you knock them out, they're a good enough team to still participate with, be jolly with. I know they were cracking jokes with our production staff a little bit in the intermission there, in the loading screen in between getting the map started and underway. So, you know, as fellow gamers in the Valorant scene, everyone's all dandy with each other, and they would gladly try to help anybody take down Cumberland Phoenix. That's just really what the name of the game is right now. With the Titan off in the horizon, everyone's like, okay, what can we do here to pool together all the resources in front of us to give any team the best shot possible for it, and try to figure out maybe the saving grace overall of what the future looks like here for the SEL in playoffs. Because it's likely now with a 13-3 on map 1 scoreline for Cumberland Destiny on our lower side of the bracket that they move on and guarantee seeing the full effective force of having Cumberland into our semis. As you apparently themed it over here, our agent selection.
I said this literally last time we saw Charlotte play. I said, with the way that Fuzzy is shooting, please, for the love of God, just put him on ISO. Just put the guy on ISO. And well, they may have taken the advice, because it's at that point where, I mean, you're already kind of a shoe-in. This is that point where you're saying, this is the last map. This may be the last point we actually get some real stakes out of teams during a competition week. So let's go ahead and swap up the composition a little bit. Let's get some things in there. Let's throw some stuff out and just see what really sticks. And, well, see Fuzzy on that ISO, that's what I want to see. Sep on the Neon, a bit interesting as a follow-up, considering you do typically see that Yoru there to kind of help out the ISO, just kind of be a little bit of an usher, because, well, while Neon can stun and maybe create a wall, which isn't really all that great because, well, ISO can do that as well, Yoru provides another level of flashes and can still go ahead and close that distance and really just back the guy up. And the dimensional drifting, just a walking UAV, is also insane in the process. But I mean, we're going to see how Charlotte can really pull through with it and see whether or not they can actually manage to get something out of this, because, as you said earlier, they have to find themselves not only a map number 2 to win, to get themselves a map number 3, but get a win out as well. And, well, James Madison clearly going with a bit more tried and true of what we saw during that initial Neon kind of change come out, but when she got just absurdly buffed, and they're still adopting the Tejo, because, well, if you're not, then, I mean, I just don't know what to tell you.
For Charlotte, the look here is going to be, obviously, either of these two sides are going for a perfect mirror match, with the difference for the duelist choice, right, of having a secondary one here for Charlotte. They really like the ISO play. But as well, it's going to be the change-up they made for their player in the roles for that. Not just Fuzzy, like you mentioned there, but Sep as well, stepping in for Ruda. It's something that a lot of teams do not do. And Sep is a very good player, but can have consistency issues depending on the map. Very good at Icebox. Super solid player. Was a little lackluster maybe on a stint previously against Oklahoma, but there's little things here and there, and Haven is one I've always felt like Sep is really good at, just needs a little bit of an edge to make their case fully known. As Sif is now getting the limelight now for Charlotte here on this Cypher roll, takes down Cart. It was a 5-on-3, wasn't the best spot to be in a post plan and a pistol round, but now you're trying to do everything with everyone rushing upon you in here through main, and with all of them lining up, you're like, oh, this would be great if I had something like an Odin, but you're still left with only a measly classic, and it's JMU just having really no problems with the end result of round 1 on this defense.
Frenzies do exist.
Yeah.
But,
they run out of ammo so fast.
yeah, but they're still automatic, still a spray, but you only see maybe 1 in every 30 players buy it. And even then, you got to find a really weird demographic and sample size of players if you're going to find that 1 out of 30. But already looking at things going, I mean, we see James Madison win out that first round, get themselves the money to play, and just go ahead and buy up whatever they can with it. The Bulldog, the Marshall, and even then, better get the 2 Spectres on top of that Vandal. It makes sense to go ahead and at least kind of get one player up and running, as we saw Darby have himself a nice first round, a good couple kills. You go ahead and get that Armageddon a little bit closer, but even then better yet, looking forward, go ahead and get yourself a Vandal so you can find yourself possibly enough to even get the Armageddon in this round to really just lock down during that next one, because knowing Haven and knowing this place, you are confined to those lines, to those lanes. Unlike on Lotus where you can make a quick exchange and transfer, well, that's going to be a lot more deadly here than anywhere else.
Stack up here in Hay, coming out from Charlotte, maybe hoping that somebody overcommits on JMU's side and that the Sheriff can find impact, but you go for a quick peek, for a jump peek from Pichu, and now you don't have a controller. No smokes in front of you. You don't have a jet either for a Cloudburst. This is a very raw scenario now. You have to go and to step into sight. There is nothing there to protect here, and Ryrie is waiting. There's the Guardian up. That does not manage to tag anybody. You've got a lot of utility being bumped as you had a Relay Bolt also go out, but Murmur's also lagging behind just towards the Radiant Knight crate, and it puts everyone on Charlotte's side into a literal blender as it's 1 frag for C's with the Sheriff, and now just Sif remaining, rushed in by Cart, who has no problem with the Spectre in hand, and they will trade out for the better weaponry of that Vandal to carry forward, and JMU have a very successful, a lot like we saw for Charlotte throughout their pistol rounds, start to our second map. And keep in mind, Charlotte won all those pistols, Dallas, got their extra round wins that you would like to see, and still was short of coming away with the victory on map 1 by just a slim margin.
Yeah, I mean, those would have at least guaranteed possibly just really driving in that first half for 2 more, just like we saw during that secondary half, to go ahead and find that OT at least. But I mean, looking at what the guns are now, we saw the weaponry of Cart kind of be upgraded for a second, but I knew it was going to be passive or back to Darby. I mean, look at that 6 out of 8 for the Armageddon. You're looking to see if you can just go ahead and really just drive that thing home. Get as close as you possibly can, make it a problem for everyone else in the vicinity, and you do exactly that. Darby able to go ahead and find 1, 2. There you go, ultimate on board. You're 21 HP, but you can get out and say, hey, this is going to be a really big problem when they want to kind of go ahead and follow up, and especially when they were wanting to settle themselves on site. You can barely even do that with only 2 players alive.
See, he's just trying to get some early contention here, but man, it just feels like everything that you started to boil up falls apart at the seams, and Charlotte are looking like a 3rd round win will be away from them. Miracles can happen. Caruso is down there in sewer, just on the inside frame of that door. Darby not too far away from it either. Pichu maybe has a chance to get not just this one player here of Caruso, but also maybe a chance for Darby thereafter. It's only a Spectre in Caruso's hands. It's a wild swing from them, but that's why you have that tandem swing from Darby immediately afterwards. Something that we were kind of harping on them, Dallas, or at least I was on map 1. It felt like they were a little bit slow in their timing and their curriculum for re-engaging with the team. But a lot of that was on their offense. Their defense was pretty clinical, it felt like, and the scoreline was indicative of that. And now with a 3-0 start and likely a 4th with the weaponry that Charlotte are looking to the table, though anything can happen here in Valorant, especially for the SEL, it very well could be a continuing statement for James Madison to once again have their defense be a spectacular way to orient themselves.
Yeah, I mean, just really going to see, obviously, James Madison driving these first couple. I mean, we saw it have a huge effect for Charlotte during that secondary half in that last map, but I mean, right here, right now, getting it kicked off, I mean, it's a big momentum swing, knowing that, I mean, you've gone ahead, you've already lost the first map, and you can't even get the second one started appropriately. It just really stings to see, especially when you're inside the server, you're saying, man, what's going to be next for us? Because, I mean, this 4th round, you get to go ahead and just know that it's expected to lose. You can't let it get too much ahead of you. But, I mean, for James Madison specifically, you're seeing Caruso be like, maybe, hopefully, this is the time when I can really start getting some bloodshed. Because, I mean, we've only seen the guy die once. I mean, there hasn't been very many rounds. But, I mean, we've seen Darby go ahead and manage 7. This guy's been getting the majority of the blood. He's the one who's been warming up. He's the one who's already kind of on fire to play with that. But speaking of fire, we may see one start to burn up, considering that for the better yet the side on James Madison, knowing that that's going to be an upgrade for what it seems like Sep is going to pick that weapon up and have now a Vandal to play with to really just kind of get this thing going.
We have confirmation that Cumberland Phoenix have in fact taken down UGA Red, so our first semifinal matchup is 100% guaranteed. GMU v Cumberland Phoenix. The best of luck to them next week. James Madison now trying to say, we want to finish this in 2, and with a 4-0 start, you'd be on the dockets to get there pretty well, and this round's turning in a pretty good way. Tempted plant comes through, forced off, player dies in the process. Ryrie has to Peach just step back over to go for this plant, and while it'll eventually go down, you're on the most retakeable objective on this map, let alone in the game, it feels like, still. You have so much utility which to fight against. JMU go for an annihilation. Interesting attempt from Pichu and Sif, though, and it evens things up. Sif's at 5 HP, and Darby just has to get a little bit of damage off and just barely misses. There's the stun. Trying to engage into space. Wants to stick this to half at bare minimum. Sif's going to go for more, and it's an easy body shot for Darby. And JMU bleed a lot of credits for this round and even use an ultimate in the process. But they reclaim 2 pips back for Darby throughout it and guarantee 4 in a row, which will stabilize a whole lot no matter what happens the remainder of this half. A lot in their favor.
I mean, they shouldn't be stressing it too much. I mean, considering that obviously when you lose that one and you lose a lot of credits in the process, it's just going ahead and buffing out for that third round that Charlotte should have won. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the economy is going to be relatively even and back to kind of the standstill that we're expecting, but the round still obviously very much in James Madison's advantage. And Charlotte are going to go ahead and call this timeout to figure out what exactly they can do in a round like this, knowing that this should be kind of the use it or lose it kind of situation where you have that neural theft that needs to be invested as soon as possible. You got to get a really good understanding of what's going on here and make sure to really drive this thing in. Otherwise, we're going to be looking at a 6-0 off rip, and that's a guaranteed even half by the end of that first, even concluding. So, I mean, that's going to be just detrimental in its own right, and you're going to be playing from behind, guaranteed for the rest of the half, just to give yourself some relevancy going forward. So, for Charlotte, I'm not really too sure what they can do different to really get this thing going because, I mean, obviously when you're playing with that Yoru and the ISO, you have more of an established kind of synchronization going on between the two duelists to get themselves on the site. But the issue is when you're playing a Neon and literally any other duelist ever, it feels more like a foot race where it feels like, okay, I want to get the kills. No, I need to get the kills. And it's like, well, whoever gets on site first gets all the kills. And that's just not how it works. It has to be in unison. It has to be followed up with these initiators. It has to be followed up with all this oppression coming down onto the site where your duelists can work in tandem. And if they're too focused on getting there first, they can never really focus on clearing everything efficiently.
Odin to keep them out of mid window. And some salvos as well. That puts 2 players heavily in towards now attack respawn. Cart full the way in. Alongside Darby for JMU through mid window. Hearing the audio cue of the ISO popping their double tap inside of A main.
Wow, my eyes are
You're
dumb.
now securing maybe possible chance for more. Karu's up in upper heaven. You got away with a Sova frag on the extension in the attempt to swing in through that spawn. That trap bar will be dealt with very quickly here by Cart for the side of James Madison. And Sep is trying to lag just below the upper side of heaven window for more as they will clear away the Sentry Drone, just pre-firing it, knowing that it was coming. And you'll now have to kind of stage up where utility you have. A Neon Overdrive could be pretty good here, but they're coming in from long, down all the way on ramp. They weren't a necessity. And because of that, it's just Cart swinging into sight. You're stealing all the frags. You already had ultimate charge, and there's 4 pips now thrown into the wind. But guess what? It's 5 rounds on your scoreboard, tallied in a row for JMU, and the loser's bonus for Charlotte. Yeah, it's adding up. It's maxed out, but man, oh man, Dallas, you'd much rather have a win in your back pocket, I feel like, at this point.
I mean, just anything, honestly. It's just, it hurts to watch teams like this when they're just struggling to even get any relevancy on the field. I mean, they're just over and over again trying to at least get something, and they manage to get the plant. I mean, to some clean extent, but I mean, it's at that point where they just haven't really had many opportunities to practice these post plants because they haven't been in very many situations for them to occur. They've been dead more times than not, so when they finally manage to get themselves in a settled position, it just kind of quickly falls apart. So, with plenty more rounds to go, hopefully, it's a nice start there from Sep to go ahead and shut down his doppelganger to maybe set the tone here for what could happen afterwards. So long as you get that plant, so long as you get the rest of the game kind of rolling, so long as you get that first, you know that they can't get 12.
Also over on our Rising Star side of things, GMU's B team against the Gamecocks are currently playing their game, and Gamecocks are now ahead 1-0 in their series, now playing over on Split of all things, which we very well could have show up for this one as well if Charlotte can start to pick things up throughout the remainder of this half and into the next half as well. The Seas does get another frag now for Charlotte. The only time we've really seen James Madison be at a disadvantage in terms of player count. Trying to destabilize. Great movement away from it by Ryrie. Now with a shrouded step down across from mid window, a garage window, I should say. It maybe gives a chance for Ryrie to be a little bit unexpected and less anticipated. It's 3-on-1 now. An unfortunate loss goes the other way. Ryrie now deals with Seas. An ace is required of Ryrie. Hiding within their own dark cover, forced to reload, 3 bullets left. And with 2 players and not much time remaining, you got to get through long, and you also have to go all the way across the other way. Ryrie gets there 4th and almost almost flicked in time to Plat to get Sep as well. The audio cue of their sprint and slide over there gave them the intel they needed to peek it. But man, oh man, Dallas. Imagine we see an ace there to be the 6th round for JMU, burying the hearts of Charlotte even further. That would be unprecedented, but they survive the onslaught from an omen of all things here on Haven, and will get their first round win, essentially scoring away all of the winners or losers bonus they had to them, and now trying to step in with 4 ultimates into round 7.
Yeah, just got to see really what's rolling here. I mean, Charlotte obviously feel the momentum, able to go ahead and kind of get themselves a presence on the field, but even then, more so with the ultimates underneath their belt right now, they have more to work with. And their bat belt is basically full. The only thing they're missing is that neural theft. I mean, that shouldn't be the biggest difference maker, because if you're seeing players, you should be able to take those fights. But even then, more so the kill contract, that can be a great opener towards any of these sites. Make sure to get yourself initial first blood. We look at the operator. If you have a hunch it's there, go ahead, Buzzy. Throw it. Do it. You know someone's there. The 6th sense is kicking in. But we have yet to see whether he actually wants to be taking these fights. Because, I mean, you also do have that double tap available, which is a perfect counter to the operator. I mean, literally made for it.
This is where the unpredictability of your operator is kind of the big thing we mentioned a lot. Is no double tap online for you. And you're now looking at Charlotte. A player down, they know where the operator is, and the question is going to be, do they try to get into this fast and try to shut them from going around the corner, or do they try to go further in? Look at the barrage. Relay out. Pistols for both. They're stunned, and it's Card coming away with a classic kill against Sep. And it's all JMU in the feed bar, Pichu. And now they're the only one left standing for Charlotte. And it all went so wrong so fast in the escape towards site as Pichu ults on over to C. They want the eco. They want everything to help. And the tripwire gives lines of sights for Ryries to spam it. Goodness gracious. You can keep him away from a 6-0 start, but you can't keep JMU away from a 6th round win. It just takes one more extra to get there for him.
And even then, I mean, just great way that GMU even kind of did that. And initially, I mean, already we saw the slow start. We understood. I mean, even the better yet, Cart finally going ahead and having a bit more discipline, knowing with the operator, not overextending, not getting crazy with it, not kind of doing insane things. Just better yet, playing a more traditional game with the operator off the get-go on one of those side lanes rather than up the middle. But even then, still more so that secondary kill. That is just that's just salt in the wound at that point. I mean, sure, you're stunned up, but I mean, you should have a better weapon. You should just know that, okay, I'm in a situation where I got to aim and I'm up against Neon, who had the operator in hand. I know he's running a classic, and you still lose an outright gunfight against him.
Oh, Sheriff out. They want to push this fast. Darby's in a spot where they got to fall back. They don't have much health. This is an interesting attempt, and eventually Sep's overdrive gets them down, and Murr refrags, and immediately afterwards, no more ultimates for your Neon. And this is a right-click easy. Oh, and it's cards! Oh my goodness, they were allowed to shine against Cumberland Phoenix, but they are thriving against this Charlotte roster. 7 to JMU, and Haven, there's no safe haven if you're here from Charlotte. This is an absolute brutalization for your attacking half. In the second half, no, even just the end of this first half has to be completely different before things get completely out of control for you.
Oh, he does it. Not only to one player, to 2 more following. It's just, I'm thinking, okay, you get out of here, right? No, the call was made by Ryrie. He said, go. It's you, and boy went feral immediately. Just going in there for it, which is just absolute insanity to see over and over again. Charlotte and Fuzzy can't even manage to get the kill contracts off. It's just an absolute dismantling once more for James Madison, where they just understand what is being thrown at them, and they don't take much of an effect from it. They don't feel phased in the slightest.
Shots connecting for Carouse, and it's just death after death after death for Charlotte. Flawless. Round 9 turns for JMU. And we are now 3 rounds away from the end of this half, and James Madison are already nearing double digits. This is not where you'd want to be as a team, let alone the manner in which you want to be that way. Charlotte will take a timeout. Maybe a wise decision for them to talk things through even further. There's a lot you have in front of you, but there's also a lot we have going on elsewhere. The Rising Stars has continued. And we have already confirmed that JMUB has 2-0'd UKY White, which is a team we talked a lot about on Tuesday in the State of the SEL. Make sure you tune in on Tuesday. Same standard broadcasting time, 7 CST, 8 EST PM. But they were a team that was kind of unknown. They'd kind of scraped through a lot of their games, and the games they were winning were in a pretty big fashion. And you turn that around, and they managed to, unfortunately, not put a single map up on JMUB, and JMU is also looking to do the same thing, go 2-0 against this Charlotte side, and turn that over to the Gamecocks, who were looking good on Split. They want to move on into it even further. This was the team that we were really looking at going into the Rising Stars Dallas, that we thought they would go on further. The winner of that in ETSU, we felt like would make it to the finals. Still more to be proven going into next week, but time will ultimately tell. Rising Stars has been a pretty impressive foray, it feels like, Dallas overall here for the SEL. We're really proud to have all those teams competing and showing off what they're going to be capable of in the future and capable of now throughout the remainder of this split.
Yeah, just keeping things running, trying down there, just making sure that they're warranted a slot whenever it comes around to the next season. As it stands so far, this is what they're fighting for. This kind of broadcast, this kind of talent, these kind of practices, these kind of game days, these kind of stakes, and these kinds of teams that they can really go ahead and just elevate what they're dealing with. But there's a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of kills that need to be managed to get there in the first place. And speaking of those kills, James Madison has been an absolute showcase in terms of this map thus far. I mean, an 8-1 scoreline obviously is a testament to that. But even then, still more so, the fact that we have 4 ultimates on the board with James Madison being this far ahead shows that they're not really investing much out of them. The guns are doing all the work they need to do. The utility is there to back it up. And anything beyond that, well, they never really feel too forced to have to rip it out.
Will JMU get their 9th round now for their side? Defensively, it looks like it's a possible C-site take. She had 1 inside C-long main. The rest now are looking to head in through Garage. It's a lot of utility here in Garage, but Caruge just has to take a couple fallback steps to avoid it. And there's your shot from Cart. Fallback made away from Platt. Hunter's Fury. Does he get a tag against them as well? Nope, still being avoided. The third goes nowhere either. As Charlotte committed basically everything they wanted to in this round. And now with Sif being stunned by the relay bolt on site, it should be an easy cleanup to spray through the remainder of that. And they know it, as the audio cue is there. And eventually the shoulder is spotted, and Ryrie goes, "Here's my shorty. It's a pleasure to meet you." It's now an even bigger tally to our side. We got our 9th. We still have 2 more rounds to get up to double digits, even if a couple mistakes are made. And we have 3 ultimates still. The craziest part about that is that's 3 ultimates used in that round by Charlotte.
Yeah, just to see if they can kind of get something to play with there. But, I mean, not really when they have much of an advantage to drive it forward. But, I mean, you really can't blame when there's not many positions or times in this map thus far that have given you an advantage. So, I mean, when can you really use it? Hopefully to kind of create some equilibrium and kind of level the playing field. But we haven't really seen much of that. So, going back towards C-Long, Charlotte want to give it another shot. They want to go for an all 5-man approach. Knowing that the Neon could be over there once more, the operator will be kind of competent for at least an initial shot, but you have now announced your presence here with that first. Able to go ahead and manage to get that first kill is going to be fuzzy, so able to go ahead and kind of play that ISO, do the duelist role correctly, and either get following up off the back of it. So good stance here, then 3v5, where James Madison's going to be on this post plant. There's no way in heck they don't go for this. I mean, considering they got all the money in the world, but Charlotte, this is the point where you could find that second. You're just playing to lock him out as best you can.
Right, we're looking to do the exact same thing they did previously here on the escape out through Garage, but C's has something to say about it. Fuzzy gets their 3rd and eventually will fall. And Darpy, who has been doing Darpy things this entire series, has a chance for maybe 1 more, but now it's being flanked by C's, and time ultimately shows that there is a free round for Charlotte. And I won't say it's entirely free. They had to work real hard for it, and it's not been the most wild amounts of success. No one's getting a raise, it feels like, for Charlotte, despite how hard they've been working. But they'll raise up their scoreboard tally just by 1 more and have a chance to actually keep James Madison away from a, double-digit 10-2 halftime. But they have ultimates they have to face off against. Darpy has the Annihilation online. Neural Thet gets a ton of information to take some 1 free kill, and Cruz has been pretty consistent about getting those firsts and winning out those trade battles. And then Murr just has to kind of wait. Stall things out with the Rolling Thunder and bait Charlotte into this false, lulled sense of security, as Cruz will make a hefty fallback pan through Garage, trying to move away from that recon bolt. And it's a ult or battle, it seems like, for Charlotte as well. He does get over to the one there on C-Long and gets it to use the ult here. And they want to send this into Garage window, and they do actually get Murr for a chance. No, Ryrie for a chance of the 1v1. No, it is Myrrh. I can't read through that distance through that. I'm colorblind. And they'll lose that fight, and it's just turned blue in the feed for JMU. Every player you would possibly love to see stay in, now removed as Darpy hops, skips, and dives straight into the face of Pichu with a shorty once again.
I was really expecting them to try and knife him there. I'm not going to lie. Happy to say they didn't. But, I mean, even more so, I mean, Charlotte going ahead and making a big investment like that, obviously, to go ahead and try to see, obviously, that kill contract. I'm expecting maybe a bit of a push, knowing that Murr could be somewhere in that back line, knowing that even if he does win that gunfight, somebody maybe finds a bit of an extension, like Pichu right there, to go ahead and get that initial kill on him as soon as he comes back alive to kind of play for those 1-and-1-and-1s. But we just don't see it really unfold the way they want it. And that's kind of been the story this entire map. As we go into the secondary pistol round, now introduction to this first half with, well, James Madison being up 10-2. And as I said, during that first map, a smaller discrepancy of rounds than they are seeds. So, I mean, that's a good look for them. But here, it's larger. And considering it's a difference of 5, that's not really what you want to see.
Waiting around the bend, Fuzzy, hoping that somebody will take an aggressive swing here through garage window, but there's where the sentry drone goes, and the relay bolt as well, and Fuzzy is eviscerated by 3 players working together for JMU. And when you have to use that much utility for a kill, you don't really scoff it. It's like, yeah, it's whatever, but at the same time, it's instant value. And afterwards, it turns into this trade game, and because they had the 1 lead advantage, they just have to make sure they're refragging afterwards, which JMU weren't great at on attack for the map of Lotus. But already for their attack in this round have looked a whole lot more clear about the picture in front of them. C's now the only one left. Has to go against Ryrie close inside. To default, does eviscerate them eventually, but now has to deal with 1 player inside Hall and another one down long. And the Hall player of Carews swings around the bend and will put JMU now up to 11. They are 2 rounds away to ending this series and moving on to clinch a tiebreaker slot in our semifinals next week, where they have to face off against Cumberland Destiny, who I think they have played and I think maybe they've beaten before. I need to check into that a little bit more, but they're most definitely an unbelievably tough team, and they made fairly quick work actually of the UGA Black roster, who JMU had to take to 3 maps.
Yeah, I mean, good looks for them so far. I mean, obviously, this is their map selection. They have proven that so far, but I mean, beyond that, it's just a matter of that first map and things they got to iron out. I mean, that's really the lesson to take away from this. I mean, every single game, there's something to be learned, and when you look at the difference of this, you're hoping for a result like this every single day, every single map, every time you just hop in the server against another established team. So it's good looks for them, knowing that even better yet, you talk about tiebreaker. I mean, you're not looking at tiebreaker. You're clearly looking at just winning and carrying things on and knowing that you're going to possibly be in the same exact kind of matchup when it comes around to land. And if you can make quick work of it, much faster at that, you get to eat lunch a little bit quicker too, better yet. And we see them wanting just to go ahead and eat up right now, as they already put it into a 3v2 situation, trying to keep things rolling. 3v1, they just want to find number 12 and then just wrap things up.
Oh, actually, I stand corrected. UGA Black is still playing map 2. It's been updated on League OS, but isn't actually correct. Crazy. Who knows? But it is 12 now for JMU. The round's wildly successful for them once again, and they have to do what they've done fairly consistently, it feels like, in this one. Break that mold of Valorant. It happened in the first half for Charlotte on their pistol round, and they ended up winning the pistol round once again on the opposing side. And then you turn this into our second stage for our second map, where JMU get their 5 in a row to start off. Was not able to get to 6th instantaneously. And then you turn it the other direction. Is it still? Is it not up to the other way? Wow, I'm crazy. I'm now having a fight with Shaka, our production team, in the back. We gotta wait now for that game to be officially confirmed. But apparently it's really darn close on map 2. We shall see with time. Sep will take a quick spin for the rotate. They don't want to be active on site here, Dallas, as James Madison come in with everyone possible. Owl drone from up above in heaven. It will be able to tag a player. That is Ryrie now going for a plant. That'll be a free shock dart and now a dive out here, but I don't even know if that shock dart hit. That shock dart made no impact. To make matters worse, James Madison's offense has now found 3, and you're left with only 2 remaining. It's 1 remaining. Pichu rushed upon by Carts, and it's flawless. 13-2, your final tally in this series. And Ruda said they felt they had JMU 2-0. They said more things we won't mention, but man, oh man, JMU did not like that, it seems, and they sent us out in a 2-0 fashion the other way instead.
Yeah, I mean, an expected result relatively. I mean, even though knowing that Charlotte are still going to land, they're not going to be too beat up by it. But knowing, I mean, obviously, they've gotten once again another taste of what they're going to be up against. Whether it be JMU, anybody they go up against will be in that same caliber of JMU or just better in general. So that's going to be the big issue here is knowing that, I mean, obviously when you go to a map number 2, you're expecting to kind of go ahead and find some rebound, find some fire under your ear, make sure you kind of get back into things and look relevant and make it look close at the end of the day. And they managed to do that during that secondary half of Lotus. Here, I mean, you can't let that entire game plan dismantle, though, once you go into the opponent's map selection. You got to think of it in the same way at the end of the day. I mean, obviously, Haven, a drastically different map, but you got to understand this is 3 sites. You're going to be on defense. You're going to be on attack. It just comes down to hitting your shots and making sure that everything's kind of synonymous together. And they just did not get much of a window on that secondary half to really let things start clicking. But you had the entirety of the first half to do that. I mean, you were on the attacking side. Your team is together already as one entire unit. And even then, things just felt a little bit lackluster in kind of actually connecting those dots between yourselves to make that picture.
This is exactly what JMU probably had written up for themselves. A map 1 that they know that Charlotte has pretty good experience on, and a map 2 that I had even mentioned prior. I felt like Charlotte were okay at, but in the same way we saw them play in this map against Oklahoma as well as playing against Niner, it wasn't like they blew us out of the water for it, right? It just wasn't the craziest thing in the world. But at the same time, they made a lot of mistakes, and those were very easily keyed on. It felt like for JMU, they rushed in for map control in certain rounds. They were unpredictable for their defense, getting such a solid lead, kind of threw the mental out for Charlotte. They weren't really sure exactly where each player would be, always staying and rotating these players around like a flowing game of Rocket League. I know we hate to mention that here for the SEO over Valorant because it's a terrible esport, but it's this ebb and flow, right, for your defensive structuring. And JMU, I think they play that to a perfect tee. If they can just work on the same things that really elevate the teams like Cumberland Destiny and Cumberland Phoenix, right? The map comprehension, the pre-fires, the reads, the audio cues, check him PC, this headset, whatever it is, get a new gaming chair, whatever it is to key into these small little tiny tidbits. JMU is a team that has so much potential inside of them, especially with a really solid, player that wants to go for coaching them, Chicka Joe and staff that's really adamant about working together and players that are really adamant working together and trying to improve. I think they've got a great future in front of them, and they've now clinched a tiebreaker position and very well could have a chance to make it to the LAN if they play it out and manage to win. So this is a good stance for them, and they have the chance now to play off against either UGA Black or Cumberland Destiny. Cumberland Destiny won map 1 in a pretty big fashion, but is now struggling over on map 2, and I think we actually have that in a scene for us. We can actually tune in and watch. Let's go ahead and check that out. Apparently we're all the way in overtime now. And Cheez It, lovely Cheez It, is currently broadcasting this. We have 0 audio for our side. If you want to just throw up, if this is their broadcast audio as well, if this is what they have live on Twitch, I don't mind throwing this up for audio as well here.
They shouldn't have 2 different guidelines, surely.
Oh, we know Cheez It's good for it. We've had Cheez It on main.
Yeah. And if not, then thankfully TJ is in charge of all this, and he's part of staff, so we can just rip him a new one.
On to the members of UJ Black. Flash points out as Cumberland manages to escape after creating pressure on A. They haven't pushed.
I do want to take a bigger look at the bracket while this is underway.
To B side, Isco hearing this pressure mound with alert.
So obviously everything's starting to kind of really unravel here, where Cumberland Phoenix did beat UGA Red. That was to be relatively expected, knowing that's the secondary team. George Mason University with a forfeit win over Texas State. Rest in peace. And then James Madison clearing that out. It just really comes down to obviously the winner of this, and that's knowing that even then UJ Black bring it to this is a testament to what this team can do. I mean, this is going to be guys that we're going to be seeing, obviously in LAN, guaranteed, with them just kind of showing up here during the secondary season, with that first one just kind of looking pretty good for them. And everything beyond that, I mean, knowing that they did say they were going to be practicing. They did say they were going to be kind of scrimming. They were going to be taking things a little bit more seriously with that first season, saying that they didn't really do any of that. And I was willing to put my money where my mouth was. I mean, I just making sure that, listen to the attitude more so. It just kind of feels like, full words, but whenever it comes down to actually having the actions to back it up, I really haven't seen much. And knowing that even then they were tier 1, that's just tier replacements. But beyond that, over the course of the season, you're expecting a lot from there. And then even then, now here being in playoffs, keeping it running, keeping it interesting. I mean, they have shown some improvement. And
even whether it actually comes down to synergy as a team and playing together more and understand those tendencies and just kind of even then just queuing up in duos together, no matter what it is, I mean, they've showed that they do care in some regard.
Yeah, I think there's a statement piece to be made about where teams value themselves or like where they kind of are looking. And it's going to continue to change throughout playoffs. I think this is where teams have kind of gone in. We have a good shot. We have a chance. Like, it's not just a giant at the other end. Like, there are, especially the more we started to break down the numbers for who was going to be confirmed for LAN and who had a chance to fight for LAN, and teams started to be really interested the further they got. I think it started to mean a whole lot more for them as time goes on. But UJ won our first round here, it looks like, in overtime, and now it's turned where our Destiny side for Cumberland need to make the return the other way. They primed it fairly well defensively. Spike is apparently still lagging back here inside B Hall. And they're waiting for this dark cover to dissipate before they engage in towards B. But there is also the tripwire there. That should give plenty of time and information away to the defense to try to stage up and maybe hope for a rotate. But down goes Giraffe, who I have no idea who that actually is. I do not think that is actually their name. They were not there playing at least last week for Destiny's roster. But a refrag back by Gerardo, and Georgia has just guaranteed a full retake on over now into map 3. And what was their map ban selection? Do we know, Shaka? He'll get it for us. But with that being confirmed, UGA Black are not out of the woodworks just yet, and they can, in fact, put up a good fight on a map against Cumberland Destiny, despite the first map being, 13-2, 13-3, something like that. Haven, Lotus, and Ascent with the 3 maps. So now they have to go on from playing Lotus to the map we say is basically Ascent, that is now Ascent, onto the 3rd map. Georgia very well may do it. They may be able to move on to the semis, which if they do, Oklahoma, you've clinched it. But you're now really hoping, and you're now a Georgia fan, which you probably don't like to say, considering just how much they talked about everybody else at the end of our last split after winning the grand finals.
That's just the nature of it, though. I mean, obviously, that team, when you win, you think you're at the top, and even we've gone through a big overhaul, and I had so many more teams introduced during this second split. So, I mean, at the time, yeah, you can talk it. But at the end of this season, it still is kind of the same thing of like, there's a lot more teams. I know now. I sure as heck can talk it because there's a lot more guys we beat. But no one even then still, I mean, these are guys that, I mean, we're going to be seeing the same kind of exact thing. I mean, what we saw even during that last LAN, I mean, going all the way to that final map, I mean, it is over and over and over again. When you get to that stage, you can't really talk too much just because knowing that, I mean, it's any day of the week where you could see a possible reversal of the roles.
The fact of the matter is, as we enter into our big stages of the playoffs, besides looking up at Cumberland Phoenix, any of these teams could beat anybody. It did feel like, despite Texas State being really good and now unfortunately, dissolving and falling apart, they could have beat anybody. They had a chance against everybody besides Cumberland Phoenix. And even then, you could probably make some grounds for some sort of argument here and there, just depending on the map, or maybe, if there's an off day for a Phoenix player. Playoffs just looks like it's anyone's game, which it has to be, which is the scariest part. There's so many new teams this split, Dallas, that have to win their games that you're looking at it saying, we want land. We did not just come into this in this split just to play. We want to go a whole lot further. We probably aren't going to win the grand finals. Look who's up at the top of our playoff bracket. But at the very least, we can come on down, see a bunch of the other teams, and prove ourselves. And a lot of teams have proven themselves at lands, and prove ourselves for the SEL LAN, the second one ever for Valorant, and go above and beyond for that. And then it gives you a statement piece to be made for SEL history to move on into next year's 2 splits with lands past that. And the next 2 years after that, splits in the land for that, right? The future of SEL and the history that these lands bring, it's very important, because we still can never forget, Dallas, the grand finals for Valorant that felt like everyone was awake till 5 a.m. with how long it lasted. What we call the reason why we highlight Oklahoma as an instant SEL classic team, their fight against BPC, Bruton Parker, in that entire series.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate part, is how we don't have Bruton Parker around anymore, because, I mean, it'd easily be around in that top 4. I mean, being the previous champs, seeing what they've done and accomplished. I mean, it really stings to see them not with us. But obviously, I mean, keep in mind that was a team full of international talent favored going into the grand finals. And Cumberland may have just taken their exact seat, because, I mean, it's the same thing, right? So, I mean, who really knows what's going to be next for that? Because as you said, I mean, it's a wild card past this point. Oklahoma could still go in, but I mean, even if they do go, they still have to overtake the rest of the competition, knowing that they kind of had a relatively close race with Charlotte, who just got 13-2'd
by JMU, that doesn't look too hot for you either, because you know that the task is even bigger for you in terms of the food pyramid.
Yeah, food pyramid doesn't mean a lot, but it also can mean a lot, right? What is it? A corner dog bites back or something like that is the statement, right? Like you can't rely on a food pyramid entirely. Sometimes if you're pushed into a corner, you can overcome the obstacles in front of you and pull off something crazy. And I'm really hoping that the playoffs continues to do that. Obviously, UGA Black have pulled off a pretty big Map 2 win after the big loss that came in Map 1 for them. But with that being said, I don't believe we actually have an interview for this. Nobody for JMU has unfortunately responded to our statements. My producer is currently sending a message right now, so I don't think... we'll have to see. He stopped typing. He could just talk in my ear as well. But at the end of the day, I don't think we're having an interview for him. So unfortunately for that, we won't have that. But we will go ahead and raid the UGA stream right afterwards. I'm going to go ahead and put that down so that you all can still tune into that and watch that broadcast to see how that game pans out. Because for JMU, that's big implications. For Oklahoma, it's even bigger implications. You need UGA Black to win so you don't have to tiebreaker. Because I hate to break it to you, Oklahoma. If you couldn't beat Charlotte in a normal series, and JMU is going to be in a tiebreaker equation, right? These are teams that are likely going to beat you in the tiebreaker matches, and not teams that you're likely going to face off well against in the process, because it also means UGA Red will be in the tiebreaker scenario. Well, not them, but, Cumberland Destiny would be in a tiebreaker scenario. All these other teams are like, these are giants. These are big, big rosters. And Oklahoma hasn't had the best season, though. They've been really improving, and I've been really impressed with their overall recovery from prior split. Either the case, that's all we have for you. Stay tuned. There'll be a matchup right after this on the UGA broadcast that we'll raid over to. My name is Infamous and been joined here by Dallas, a.k.a. Mick, Shaka in the booth, and Bolby, who's already dipped from behind the scenes, but big shout out to him as always for being our main producer and our goat for it. We'll see you guys next week with more action from the SEL.